Us how to be men, just how he carried himself. You will see a lot of people you can reference to how he's helped them in their lives, but immensely. It doesn't matter. It wasn't just about boxing. It was about just being a good man, a human.
Today, Houston is honoring the life of boxing legend George Foreman with a memorial service. Good afternoon. I'm Ron Trevino.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Simmons. Right now, our Jacob Rescone is joining us live from the Wortham Center downtown. Jacob, so many people came out to pay their respects today.
Well over 1,000 people we saw go up those escalators and into that service. And we heard the mayor just moments ago declare today in the city of Houston, George Foreman Day, in fact. And this is team coverage for you today and all morning long. Jason Miles is, of course, here, and Julissa Garza. But first, the memorial service itself is still going on. It's in the last minutes or so, but let's listen in for just a moment. That memorial service happening right now. Here's the program that they handed out to those who are family members. We saw dozens of them here from, of course, the 5th Ward area. We saw them from the Dallas area, from the California area. Again, well over 1,000 tickets were given out. And in addition to those family members, we talked to people who knew him from his schooling days. We talked to people who knew him as sparring partners. We talked to one who was his cut man, who was there in his corner during fights when he went to go get the comeback. George Foreman in the 80s. It is just hard to believe how many second chances George Foreman got, and that was certainly a theme today. From growing up in the 5th Ward area and getting his second chance at life, to then getting, of course, his second chance at a heavyweight title, earning that title 20 years after his first. His first title at 24 years old, his second title at 45 years old. And I believe we have coming up next, Jason Miles. Is that correct? Jason is live for us. Jason spoke to George Foreman's brother, who was here in attendance. Jason.
That's right, Jacob. You mentioned all the family members who were here. They were gathered for a time outside the Wortham Center. This is technically known as Fish Plaza. We also spoke to many young men, multiple generations of men who trained under George Foreman at his gym up on the northeast side. Not only saw him as a mentor when it comes to boxing, but also just how to live your life. And you mentioned his brother, Roy Foreman, who is the last surviving sibling of George Foreman, 7 siblings in all. He came here from New Jersey this morning, talked about George coming up to see him up in New York City. They met and loved pastrami sandwiches at some of the more famous delis up in New York City. Obviously, George Foreman known for his appetite, among other things. Roy talked about the family, sharing basically George with the world. Take a listen.
I always say the world is going to know him as the 2-time heavyweight champion, but he was a big brother. And that's the best word you can say, my big brother. And that he was my big brother. To find the guy that was more pleasing and pleasant, how he started out, hard to say. But along the way, he became a brother to so many, father to some, and then to the rest of the country and the rest of the world.
Along with family members, people who George Foreman mentored, we also spoke with Oilers legend Dan Pastorini, the famous quarterback who was inducted into the Houston Sports Hall of Fame the same year as George Foreman. He also spoke about Foreman's legacy, and the thing he, a fellow athlete, remembers most or cherished the most about George was his relationship to God and how that helped him at times as well. For now, outside the Wortham Center, Jason Miles will send it back to you.
Jason, thank you. That theme repeated so often this morning as we talked to family and friends. There was one George Foreman, the George Foreman who won the first heavyweight title, and then after he became a preacher, what he described as a religious awakening, there was another George Foreman, the George Foreman who sometimes would not even want to knock the other fighter down, even though he knew he was about to win. We're covering all angles for you today. Julissa Garza has been out here as well, talking with, among other things, friends of George's who came out to the service today. Jalissa?
Yeah, Jacob, that's right. He definitely had a lot of friends who traveled from the state, different parts of the country to be here and, really recognize a man who, as myself, I know growing up in Houston, we know him as not only a boxer, but also just a pillar of the community. Now, 3 of his friends of 20 years made the trip here to Houston from Nacogdoches. Take a listen to how they met.
He comes through there occasionally, and we have a friend who has a farm, and George was big into horses, so he would come up there and do a trail ride every year, and we met him at that.
Now, David Stallings there and his two longtime friends aren't the only ones who traveled to be here today. I know you heard from Jacob saying there was family members that were coming from Dallas and even California. Spoke with some of those cousins from California. They told me that George Foreman was the glue of the family. Today, they're working to be that glue for each other as they remember a man who always showed up for family, friends, and for the city of Houston. Now, we do know that his legacy lives on in the lives of the people he touched, and we've heard so many stories from different people. I know Jacob definitely has some of those stories. Maybe we've heard before. A lot of them we haven't until today. And really just today's service has been a reminder of what Foreman stood for in the ring and far beyond it. But truly his legacy is still standing like his spirit, very, very strong. Jacob?
Jalissa, thank you so much. It was right before I stepped out of that service because I was there inside. They said, look, he was the friendliest, smiliest guy, but when that bell rang, he got down to business and he did his thing. We also want to tell you about one of his cousins and a former principal who we talked to here, who talked about just how he never ever got too big for his family and the Fifth Ward.
First started fighting, he used to come to our house after every fight. He burned us T-shirts with his picture on it. We put them T-shirts on, and baby, we thought we was the baddest people in the world. We thought we was the champion.
On graduation day, he gave each kid that was graduating, girl and boy, a George Foreman grill. And the parents were just shocked. But that's what you do. And I watched him, and to me, he was like a mentor.
He was that and so much more. We will replay this coverage here at 1 o'clock for you, remembering George Foreman, an iconic boxer and Houstonian. We're taking a look back at the life, the legacy, the man, and we have our interviews with family, friends, the mayor, his cut man, sparring partner, all of that. You can download on your TV. You can watch that for free whenever. And as we toss it back, Steph and Ron, it has been hitting me all morning that if he had just won one heavyweight title, we would be honoring him today. But you have him as the preacher. You have him as the man who built the church here, who built the youth center here, who then came back out of retirement, won a second heavyweight title, and then the man who sold 100 million grills. Really is quite the legacy and quite the example of a second chance after second chance. Steph and Ron, back to you.